If you're a man and you're watching this, you probably find yourself in certain situations where you crave attention, and that's not a bad thing. Attention is something that we all need as human beings. But when your entire mood is dependent on attention, especially from women, then you might want to watch this video. So there's something I've noticed about men who struggle with desperation. They usually think that the problem is that they care too much about women. But I don't think that's actually the problem. The problem is that somewhere along the way, a woman's attention becomes connected to their sense of worth. And once that happens, dating stops being about getting to know someone. It becomes about getting approval. You don't just want her, you need her to want you. And those are two completely different things. Wanting someone is actually a healthy thing. It's needed in relationships. But needing someone to validate you is where things start to go wrong. Because when you need her attention, every interaction, it suddenly has enormous emotional consequences. If she takes hours to reply, you start worrying. If she seems enthusiastic, you feel confident. If she seems distant, you question yourself. If she chooses you, you feel valuable. If she rejects you, you feel like something is wrong with you. And that is an incredibly unstable way to live your life. So today I want to explain why men become desperate for women's attention, what's actually happening underneath the desperation, and more importantly, how you can get yourself out of it. Because becoming less desperate isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about becoming a man who can care deeply without losing himself. And that's very important to have in mind when you're dating or when you're just building a relationship with someone. So desperation, it's not usually about the woman. This might sound strange, but the woman you're desperately pursuing is often not actually the source of the problem. She's triggering something in you. So think about it. You meet a woman you're attracted to. She seems amazing. She's beautiful. She's interested. She's confident. Suddenly you become completely focused on her. You start imagining what a relationship could be like. We've all been there. You start thinking about her constantly. You want to see her again. You crave her attention. You want her to like you. And because you want her so badly, you become terrified to doing anything that could make her lose interest in you. So you start monitoring yourself. Did I text too much? Did I say the wrong thing? Should I wait before replying? Why did she put a period at the end of the message? Something as banal as that. Why hasn't she liked my story? Why... You aren't even interacting with her anymore. You're interacting with your interpretation of her. So that's where fantasy comes involved. That's where fantasy ruins a relationship or the quality of your communication with someone. And underneath this lies an important question you keep asking yourself is, am I enough? It's not, it shouldn't be, does she like me? But am I valuable enough to be chosen? And when you don't have a strong answer to the question internally, you start looking for that answer externally. Her attention becomes evidence. Her attraction becomes evidence. Her affection becomes evidence. And that's why losing her attention can feel so devastating. Because you're not just losing a woman. You're losing the thing you were using to feel valuable. And that's a much deeper problem. So this is why rejection can feel really personal in a man's life. Rejection is unpleasant for anyone. Nobody enjoys hearing, I'm not interested. But emotionally healthy men can experience rejection without turning it into a verdict on their identity. They can think two things at the same time. They can think, okay, she wasn't interested, and that's it. They don't necessarily think, what's wrong with me? They should be able to think, she's not interested in me, and that's okay. But what we always think about is things personally. We take it personally, so we ask ourselves, maybe I'm not attractive enough. Suddenly, you think that nobody's going to choose you. So if one date didn't work out, suddenly you feel like you're doomed. One woman lost interest, suddenly you need to win her back. And this is where chasing begins. This is where desperation comes into play. So you start sending her another message, you explain yourself, you try harder, you become more available, you give more compliments, you offer more attention. You start trying to convince someone to want you. But here is the uncomfortable truth that you're about to hear. You cannot negotiate someone into genuine attraction. And the more you try to choose you try to convince someone to choose you, the more you communicate that you don't believe you'll be chosen without convincing. That's the paradox. So the harder you chase validation, the less validated you feel. Because even if you eventually get her attention, you still don't know whether she genuinely wants you, or whether somehow managed to persuade her. Whether you've managed to persuade her or she genuinely wants you. So you need more reassurance, and then more, and that cycle just never ends. Problem number 2 is scarcity. A lot of desperation comes from believing that the person in front of you is that only opportunity that you can have. You meet one woman and you think to yourself, this is it, I can't mess this up. And suddenly you're putting enormous pressure on an interaction that barely has a foundation. You don't actually know her yet. You know what you've seen. You know how attracted you are to her. You know how you feel around her, but you don't know whether you're compatible. And that's more important than just simply being attracted to somebody. You don't know how she handles conflict. You don't know what she's like in a relationship. You don't know whether your values align, which is so much more important than just baseline attraction. You don't even know whether you can give the kind of relationship that she wants or what that you want. Yet your mind has already built that entire future. And because you've mentally invested so much time and effort, losing that person feels catastrophic. Not as some dating trick, not because you should pretend to be busy, but because you need things in your life that matter independently of romantic attention. Your friendships, your work, your health, which gets oftentimes neglected because of relationships, believe it or not. Your hobbies, your goals, your family, things that are more important to you start to become less important because you've put so much attention and time into that crave for desperation. When those things can exist, a woman can become an important part of your life. So when you've got the right things in place, you've got a good chance to build an entire foundation that is unshakable. And that's a huge difference, let's be honest. There's not... We obviously want connection, we want intimacy, we want to feel understood, we want to feel wanted. So if you've been lonely for a long time, romantic attention can become incredibly powerful. A woman showing interest to a man, it doesn't feel like attraction, it feels like belonging. It feels like someone finally sees me, someone finally wants me. Maybe I'm not alone anymore. And these are powerful feelings and emotions that we feel as men. And if you've been missing these experiences for years, think about it, because a lot of men are single for years. It's understandable that you'll cling tightly when you finally get that. But this is exactly why you need to build connection in multiple areas of life. A romantic relationship should give you that intimacy that you need. It should not be your only source of intimacy. You need people you can talk to, friends you can laugh with, communities where you feel known, activities where you feel like you're competent in, goals that make you feel like you're moving forward. Because when your entire social world is concentrated around a woman, every romantic interaction carries way too much weight. One person becomes responsible for meeting needs that were never meant to belong to that one person. And that's really unfair to you. It's really unfair to her even. So how do you actually stop being desperate? Step number 1, stop trying to eliminate the feeling. Now this is important. You're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel attraction. You're going to care whether someone likes you. That is completely normal. The goal isn't to become emotionally numb. The goal is to stop obeying every emotion you experience. You can feel anxious without sending the extra text. You can feel insecure without asking for reassurance. You can really like her without putting her on a pedestal. That's all right, because we're humans. We feel emotions. You can want her without needing her. That's true emotional strength. And the way you develop it is it's through behaviour. Let's say she's not responded. Your brain will say something is wrong, right? Instead of immediately acting on that thought, you can pause. Recognise that you're feeling anxious. That's all. You don't need to turn the feeling into a long story. You don't need to investigate her social media. You don't need to send her another message. In fact, it was funny because I've started watching a programme called You on Netflix, and it's really interesting because all of these things I'm talking about really do... The director has a really good way of showing how that can be so depressing for a person and even dangerous. And we'll get to that in a second. But the second step right now is stop auditioning. A lot of men approach dating like an interview. You ask yourself, how can I make her like me? What should I say? What does she want? How can I impress her? But dating is not supposed to be an audition. Whether you convince someone's worthy for you or whether you're worthy, you're evaluating her. You should be asking stuff like, do I actually like this woman? Do I feel comfortable around her? Do I respect her? Does she treat people well? Do we have compatible values? Do I like who I become when I'm around her? That's a completely different mindset. You're not standing in front of a judge waiting to hear whether you're good enough. Two people are figuring out whether they fit. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Neither outcome determines your worth. The third step, this is an important one, is to build a life you don't want to escape from. This might be the most important step for you in this video. So if you're constantly thinking about women, ask yourself this question: what am I supposed to be thinking about instead? Because you can simply tell yourself, stop caring about women. Your brain needs somewhere else to go, right? So build something, get serious about your work, train your body, learn something different, develop a skill that will be with you for the rest of your life. Reconnect with friends, because friends give you that extra safety and security in your life. Take yourself somewhere that you've never been. Widen your horizons, create something, read, get involved in a community, have experiences, set goals that require you to become a better person. Not so you can eventually show women how successful you are. Do it because your life belongs to you. And it's even funny because in the gym life as well, if you're working out, I see a lot of people work out and it's so obvious they're doing it to get a girl, but that is never going to work. You're never going to build a strong foundation if you're not doing it for yourself. So finally, stop controlling the outcome. You can control whether you're honest. You can control whether you communicate clearly. You can control whether you treat someone with respect. But what you cannot control, you can't control whether another person chooses you. That's okay. Because the moment you accept that, dating becomes a much easier thing. So you can walk away from situations that aren't right. You can hear no without trying to renegotiate. You can recognize disinterest without taking it as humiliation. You can enjoy attraction without turning it into an obsession, just like in that TV show You. You can meet a woman that you really like and simply think, I hope this works. So you're not locked in. You can say, I don't care. You can say, I don't need women. But what you should be careful about and should not say is, I'm going to become cold and detached. Because that's where that cycle continues, a really, really toxic cycle. But you should say to yourself, I care and I want this, and I'm still okay if it doesn't happen. That's the goal. Because confidence, it's not believing that everyone will choose you. Confidence is knowing that you'll be okay with someone if they don't. And here's the thing I really want you to take away from this video. You don't become less desperate by getting better at getting women. You become less desperate by becoming less dependent on their approval. But you become less desperate by becoming less dependent on their approval. So that's a completely different project. So it's an internal job. It's working internally within you. So it's about learning to tolerate uncertainty. It's about creating relationships outside of romance. It's about being honest with yourself about what you're looking for. And it's about understanding that your worth isn't something another person gets to hand to you. A woman can appreciate you, she can love you, she can admire you, she can even choose you. And all of those things are incredibly meaningful, but they don't create your value. They can add to your life. They shouldn't be responsible for creating your identity. So the next time you feel yourself becoming desperate for someone's attention, don't immediately ask yourself, how do I get her to like me? Ask yourself this, what am I hoping her attention will make me feel? Because the answer to that question will probably tell you what you're actually looking for. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it's connection. Maybe it's reassurance. Maybe it's excitement. So all these things are good. Maybe it's the feeling of finally being enough. Whatever that feeling is, That's where the real work begins, because once you can give yourself more of what you're desperately trying to get from another person, something changes. You stop chasing. You stop overthinking. You stop putting people on pedestals. And that is common amongst men primarily. You become a lot more selective, you become a lot more relaxed, and you ironically become much more capable of having the kind of relationship you've been wanting all that time. Not because you've learned a trick, not because you've learned how to manipulate a woman to chase you, but because you no longer need another person to prove that you're worthy of being loved. You already believe it. And when you genuinely believe that, you can finally approach, relationships from a place of choice rather than desperation. You can say, I want you, I enjoy you, and I would love this to work out. But I don't need to convince you. Just be honest and open about it. And I don't need to abandon myself to keep you. That's the difference between wanting someone and needing the validation. So you are still your own person, but you would like having them. And that is where real confidence begins. If you got any value from this video, please subscribe, share it with your friends. My name's Rob, and I love making videos about helping men.